My husband gave my recovery room to another woman while I was still weak from surgery, in front of 2 nurses, his mother, and the woman he swore was just an old friend. He told me to stop embarrassing him and take the curtained bed near the nurse's station. I did not cry. I reached for my phone with the hand that still had an 4 taped to it and called my father. Claire. My father answered on the second ring. I looked through the half-open door of the private room that had my name on the chart and saw Vanessa Hale lying against my pillows, wearing Adrian's jacket over her shoulders. Dad, I said, my voice hoarse but steady, I need you at Street Aurelia tonight. Bring hospital counsel. Adrian's face changed before I even ended the call. That was the first time he understood that the wife he had humiliated in a hospital hallway was not helpless. My husband gave my recovery room to another woman while I was still weak from surgery, not a hotel room, not a dinner seat, not a place at a table where I could stand up and leave with dignity, a recovery room, the one Dr. Larkin had ordered for me after emergency abdominal surgery, the one with dim lights, a recliner for observation, a private bathroom, and enough quiet for a patient whose blood pressure had dropped twice in the operating room. I woke up under the harsh fluorescent lights of a temporary observation bay with a curtain that did not close all the way. At first, I thought I was still sedated. My mouth tasted like metal, my throat burned from the tube they had used during surgery, my abdomen felt like it had been stitched together with wire, a monitor beeped beside me, and somewhere beyond the curtain, someone laughed in a soft, breathless way. Then I heard my husband. She needs quiet, Adrian said. A nurse answered, Mr. Whitmore, your wife also needs quiet. Her surgeon ordered room 6A. My wife understands, he said. That sentence woke me fully. My wife understands. It was a phrase he used whenever he had already decided what I would sacrifice. My wife understands why I missed dinner. My wife understands why Vanessa called me at midnight. My wife understands why my mother moved into our house for 3 weeks. My wife understands that marriage means flexibility. I turned my head slowly. Pain opened bright and hot across my lower abdomen, and I had to breathe through it. Mara, I whispered. The curtain moved. A nurse stepped in. She was in her early 40s, with tired eyes and the calm, practiced face of someone who had seen too many families become cruel in hospitals. You're awake, she said gently. How's your pain? Where am I? She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. Where is my room? I asked before she could answer. The curtain was pulled aside. Adrian stood there in his charcoal suit, the tie I had bought him last Christmas hanging loose around his neck. Behind him stood his mother, Ruth, wrapped in a cream cashmere coat like she had come to a theater instead of a hospital, and behind them, through the open doorway across the hall, I could see Vanessa Hale in room 6A, my room. She was lying in the bed, pale but perfectly made up, her honey blonde hair spread across the pillows. Adrian's navy jacket covered her shoulders. My overnight bag sat on the chair in the corner, shoved aside. For a moment, I could not speak. Adrian walked closer and lowered his voice. Claire, don't start. The words were so familiar that they almost sounded domestic. Don't start, as if pain were a scene, as if humiliation were a hobby. I was assigned that room, I said. Ruth sighed. You were asleep. Vanessa had a panic episode after hearing about your surgery. She nearly fainted. Vanessa looked over from the bed, her eyes wet. Claire, I'm so sorry. I told Adrian I could go home, but he insisted. He was just worried. She said it softly enough to sound kind and loudly enough for everyone to hear. Adrian rubbed his forehead. It's one night. You're being monitored right here, in a curtained bay, I said. You're not dying. Mara's expression hardened. That was when something inside me went still. I had spent 6 years translating Adrian's cruelty into stress. I had explained his neglect as pressure. I had told myself Vanessa was his past, Ruth was old-fashioned, and marriage required patience. But there are moments when the body understands before the heart catches up. My body, cut open and sedated, understood first. This man had looked at me unconscious and decided I could be moved. I looked at the whiteboard near the foot of my bed. My name was written there in blue marker, Claire Whitmore. Under that, a nurse had written, post-op, fall risk, pain management, private recovery per surgeon, private recovery. I lifted my left hand. The wedding ring was still on my finger. It looked strange against the hospital tape. Give me my phone, I said. Adrian frowned. Why, my phone? He looked at my bag across the hall. Inside the room where Vanessa lay in my place, Mara stepped past him. I'll get it, Ruth snapped. This is unnecessary. I turned my head toward her. So was giving my room away. Adrian's jaw tightened. You're making this ugly. No, I said. You made it ugly. I'm making it documented. Mara returned with my phone. I saw Adrian's eyes flick toward the screen as if he expected me to call him, beg him, or text him from 2 feet away like a wife trying not to embarrass her husband. Instead, I opened my contacts and tapped Dad. Adrian went very still. He had met my father only 5 times in 6 years. Each time, he had left angry, calling Malcolm Bennett cold, controlling, impossible to please. He hated that my father did not flatter him. He hated that Dad looked at his promises like contracts that needed signatures. I had stopped inviting Dad to things because Adrian said it made him feel judged. Another sacrifice I had named peace. The call connected. Claire, my father said. His voice was alert at once. Dad, I said, and hated the weakness in my voice. I need you at Street Aurelia tonight. Bring hospital counsel. Adrian stepped forward. Claire, stop. I looked at him while I spoke. My post-op recovery room was given to Vanessa Hale. Adrian authorized it or pressured staff to allow it. I'm in a temporary bay. I want a patient advocate. My chart secured, and the incident documented. There was a pause, then my father said, do not sign anything. Do not let him speak for you. I'm on my way. I ended the call. Adrian stared at me like I had slapped him. You called your father, he said. Yes, for a hospital room. For the first clear thing you have done in years. Ruth made a disgusted sound. There it is. Running back to Daddy. The second marriage gets hard. I almost laughed. Marriage gets hard. I had paid 2 years of Adrian's company debt from my separate trust distributions and called it support. I had cancelled vacations so he could attend Vanessa's charity events and called it maturity. I had sat through dinners where Ruth praised every woman except me and called it family. But tonight, apparently, marriage got hard when I wanted the bed my surgeon ordered. Vanessa appeared at the door of room 6A, one hand pressed dramatically to her chest. Please don't fight because of me. I looked at her, really looked. Her cheeks had color. Her fall was not connected to a pump. She was wearing her own silk blouse under Adrian's jacket. There was a paper cup from the hospital cafe on the bedside table. She was not post-op. She was not at risk of falling. She was simply comfortable. You're right, I said. This is not because of you. Relief flickered across her face. It's because my husband chose you while I was unconscious. The hallway went silent. Adrian's voice dropped. Enough. No, I said. That word belongs to me now. He reached for the curtain, probably to close it, to hide me, to turn the scene private. Mara blocked him. Sir, please step back. His face flushed. I'm her husband. She asked you to step back, Mara said. For the first time that night, someone treated my words as authority. 15 minutes later, my father arrived. Malcolm Bennett did not rush. He never had. He walked down the hall in a dark overcoat, silver hair neat, expression controlled. Beside him came a woman in a navy suit whom I recognized from Street Aurelia's patient rights office. Adrian went pale. Dad stopped beside my bed. His eyes moved from the floor to my face, then to the temporary bay, then across the hall to Vanessa in my room. He did not raise his voice. Who authorized the transfer of my daughter's assigned recovery room? Adrian recovered just enough to sneer. This is a family matter. Dad looked at him. No, this is a patient safety matter. The patient rights officer introduced herself. I'm Helen Morris, Mrs. Whitmore. Do you want your husband involved in medical decisions tonight? I looked at Adrian. He shook his head once. A warning. The old Claire would have seen that look and thought, later, I'll deal with it later. Don't make it worse. But later had become 6 years. No, I said, remove him from my approved contact list for tonight. My father may stay, my husband may not. Adrian's mouth opened. Ruth gasped. Claire, Vanessa whispered. Adrian, maybe you should let her rest. He turned on me. You're going to regret humiliating me. I felt pain. I felt nausea. I felt the cold sweat of medication and shock, but beneath all of that, I felt a clean, sharp line being drawn. No, I said, I regret trusting you with a door you could close on me. Helen turned to the security officers who had arrived behind my father. Please escort Mr. Whitmore out of the restricted recovery area. Adrian laughed once, disbelieving. You can't be serious. One security officer stepped forward. Sir, he looked at me again. There was anger in his face. Yes. But there was something else too, confusion. He had built an entire marriage on the belief that I would absorb pain quietly if he called it love. Now I was lying in a hospital bay, barely able to sit up. And I had still told him no. The security officers walked him down the hall. Ruth followed, hissing into her phone. Vanessa stayed in the doorway of my stolen room until Helen asked her to return to the emergency waiting area for reassessment. When room 6A was finally empty, Mara changed the sheets herself. My father stood beside my bed while they wheeled me in. I looked at the door. A small white card still sat in the holder beside it. Patient, Claire Whitmore. I stared at the name until my eyes blurred. Dad leaned closer. Claire, what else has he taken from you? I closed my eyes for the first time in years. I answered honestly, I don't know yet. By morning, Adrian had sent 27 messages. The first was angry. You embarrassed me in front of hospital staff. The second was colder. Vanessa did not deserve to be treated like that. The third tried concern. Are you in pain? I would have checked if your father had not thrown me out. The next 12 became a familiar pattern. Accusation, guilt, affection, threat, apology. Adrian had always been good at changing masks without changing direction. At 6:14 a.m., he wrote, do not make this legal. You know what happens when your father gets involved. I stared at that message longer than the others, not because it frightened me, because it revealed him. He was not worried about my health. He was worried about records. Mara came in with my medication and a paper cup of water. How are we doing? We are discovering that morphine is less disorienting than marriage. She paused, then smiled despite herself. That bad? Apparently worse. She checked my vitals, gentle and efficient. The room was quiet now. My overnight bag had been placed on the chair. My phone was charging beside me. The private bathroom door was slightly open. Everything looked like it should have looked the night before. That was the cruel part. If someone had walked in now, they might not have believed what had happened. Pain disappears from rooms faster than paperwork does, so I asked for paperwork. Mara, I said, did you document the room transfer? Her expression became careful. I filed an incident note. Can I request a copy? You can request your records through patient services. The note may be part of the internal review. Then I want the review opened formally. She nodded. Mrs. Whitmore, I was hoping you would say that. The door opened before I could answer. Dr. Larkin entered, wearing blue scrubs and a serious expression. He was a compact man in his 50s with blunt honesty and no patience for unnecessary drama. Claire, he said, I heard about last night. I'm sorry my marriage made rounds more interesting. I'm sorry your post-op orders were ignored. He looked at the chart in his hand. For clarity, room 6A was assigned because I ordered a quiet, private recovery setting. You had a blood pressure drop in surgery. You were not supposed to be placed in a high-traffic bay. My father, who had been sitting in the corner reading hospital policy on his tablet, looked up. Was my son-in-law authorized to change that order? He asked. No, Dr. Larkin said. No family member is authorized to change a medical order. Staff may have been pressured. That is what we need to determine. There it was, not jealousy, not drama. Not a wife overreacting, a medical order, a patient safety issue, something measurable. I breathed out slowly. Dr. Larkin turned to me. I also want to confirm your contact permissions. At intake, Mr. Whitmore was listed as emergency contact and medical information recipient. Do you want that changed? Yes, I said. Remove him. Add my father and my attorney once I give her information. My father's eyes softened, but he did not interrupt. Dr. Larkin nodded. Done. After he left, Dad stood and came closer to my bed. You need a lawyer who is not connected to me, he said. I looked at him. He held up a hand. I can recommend 3. You choose. I will not manage this for you. That was my father. Controlled, precise, occasionally impossible. But he had always respected consent more than comfort. It was one reason Adrian disliked him. Do you think I'm overreacting? I asked. Dad's face changed for a second. I saw not Malcolm Bennett, foundation chair and board member, But the father who had sat beside me when I broke my arm at 13 and told the nurse to ask me, not him, where it hurt. No, he said, I think you have been underreacting for a long time. I looked away. The shame came then, quiet and heavy. Not shame for calling him. Shame for all the times I had not. Adrian and I had married 6 years earlier in a vineyard outside Santa Barbara. He was charming then, ambitious, a man who said he admired my independence. He told me he did not care about my family name. He wanted me, not the Bennett money. I believed him because I wanted to. I had been 26 and tired of being Malcolm Bennett's daughter. Adrian made ordinary life look romantic. Cheap takeout on moving boxes, Sunday coffee, a little house with bad plumbing, and a view of jacaranda trees. Then his business hit trouble. Then his mother needed help with medical bills. Then his company needed a bridge loan. Then Vanessa came back. Every request had been framed as temporary. Every sacrifice had been called partnership. I unlocked my phone and opened my banking app with shaking fingers. 3 years of transfers stared back at me. Whitmore Development Emergency Capital, Ruth Whitmore Medical Reimbursement, Adrian Personal Account, Whitmore Family Mortgage Support. I had stopped reading the labels long ago because each one had become a small argument I did not want to have. Dad saw my face. Claire, I want Nora Fields, I said. He nodded once. Good choice. Nora Fields was not warm. That was why I wanted her. She had represented women my foundation helped when financial abuse hid inside respectable marriages. She did not confuse tears with truth. By noon, Nora was on a secure video call. She had sharp dark eyes, silver hoops, and the kind of voice that made lies feel unsafe. Claire, she said, your father forwarded only your request for counsel. He did not give me details. Tell me in your own words. So I did. The surgery, the room, Vanessa, Adrian, security. Nora listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, first, we preserve medical records. Second, we send notice that Adrian Whitmore may not act as your medical proxy. Third, we review your prenuptial agreement, separate property schedule, and all transfers made during the marriage. Fourth, you do not speak to him alone. I'm still in the hospital, I said. That makes the last part easier. My phone buzzed again. Adrian, I declined. It buzzed again, declined. Then a message appeared. You have no idea what you just started. Nora saw my expression. Screenshot it. I did. Then another message came. If you go after me, I will tell everyone how unstable you've been since the pregnancy loss. For a moment, my hand went numb. The pregnancy loss. He had not said our loss. He never did. 3 months earlier, I had miscarried at 11 weeks. Adrian had been in New York with Vanessa for a donor strategy meeting. He came home 2 days later with flowers from an airport kiosk and the exhausted expression of a man inconvenienced by grief. I had not told my father then. I had told almost no one. Nora's voice softened slightly. Claire, send that to me. I forwarded it. Dad's jaw tightened from the chair. I looked at the message again, and something bitter and clarifying moved through me. Adrian had turned my grief into a weapon before the anesthetic had fully left my body. All right, I said. Nora leaned closer to the camera. All right what? All right, I repeated. Let's make it legal. That afternoon, Helen Morris returned with forms. I signed authorization for release of my medical records to Nora Fields. I signed removal of Adrian from my visitor list. I signed a request for the internal incident report. Every signature hurt because my hand trembled. Every signature steadied me. At 5, Mara came in with soup and a small envelope. This arrived from patient services, she said. Inside was a printed copy of my current chart summary. Post-operative recovery location originally assigned, room 6A, temporary relocation occurred at 22:43 pending administrative review. Family dispute noted. I stared at the phrase family dispute. Nora had warned me institutions often softened harm into neutral language, but there was also another line. Patient objected upon regaining consciousness. Patient stated spouse had no permission to alter recovery arrangements. That line was mine. A beginning. My father left around 7 to take a call, and for the first time since waking, I was alone. The room was quiet enough that I could hear the air system hum. I took off my wedding ring. It resisted at the knuckle. My fingers were swollen from fluids, and I had to twist slowly, biting back pain. When it finally came free, it left a pale indentation. 6 years of marriage, reduced to a ring mark and hospital tape. I placed it in the plastic cup where the nurses kept my small belongings. Then I opened my banking app and cancelled the recurring transfer scheduled for the next morning. $25,000 to Whitmore Development, cancelled. The confirmation screen appeared. I stared at it until the word felt real, then my phone rang again, unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. A woman's voice spoke quickly. Mrs. Whitmore, this is Dana from Western Pacific Bank. We're calling to verify a wire request submitted under your marital household authorization. My pulse slowed, not quickened, slowed. For how much? I asked. $1,200,000. I looked at my ring in the plastic cup. Who submitted it? A pause. The request was initiated by Mr. Adrian Whitmore. I closed my eyes. There it was, the next room he had tried to take. I left the hospital 2 days later with discharge papers, a folder of records, and a body that felt borrowed. My father wanted me to stay at his house in Pacific Heights. I refused, not because I wanted to go home, because I needed documents. The marital house stood in Laurel Canyon, all glass and pale stone, the kind of place Adrian loved because it looked expensive from the street. He called it our first real achievement. Ruth called it proof that her son had married well but still built his own life. Neither of them mentioned that the down payment had come from my premarital account, or that the deed listed the Bennett Trust as secured creditor, or that Adrian had once stood in our unfinished kitchen, kissed my forehead, and said, "It's just paperwork, Claire, we know what's ours." I knew now, paperwork was memory without mercy. Dad's driver took me up the hill, but I went inside alone. The house smelled wrong, not dirty, not abandoned, occupied. Vanessa's perfume was in the entryway, light, floral, sweet enough to rot. I stood there holding my hospital bag and felt a coldness deeper than anger settle in my ribs. There was a beige scarf on the console table. Not mine, a prescription bag from Street. Aurelia sat beside it, Vanessa Hale printed on the label. The medication was for nausea. I took a photo, then another, then I walked into the living room. Ruth Whitmore rose from the sofa like a queen interrupted. Finally, she wore black, which would have been funny if she had not looked so satisfied. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "In my son's house." "My house," I said, her eyes sharpened. "Don't be vulgar." That was Ruth's favorite word for women who mentioned money after men had spent it. I looked past her. Adrian stood near the fireplace, sleeves rolled, face shadowed from lack of sleep. For one fragile second, memory betrayed me. I saw the man I had married, the man who once made pancakes at midnight because I was working late and forgot dinner. Then Vanessa came down the stairs wearing one of my robes. The memory died. She froze halfway down, one hand on the railing. "Oh," she said, "Claire, I thought you were staying with your father." I looked at the robe, white cotton, monogrammed CBW, a gift from my mother before she died. My voice was calm when I spoke. That surprised everyone, including me. "Take it off." Vanessa flushed. I spilled tea on my blouse. Adrian said I could borrow something. "Take it off." Adrian stepped forward. "Claire, she's not well. I had surgery 3 days ago. That is exactly why you shouldn't be here causing a scene." I almost admired the speed with which he returned to the old script. Ruth joined in. "You owe everyone an apology. You had my son removed from a hospital like a criminal. He was interfering with my care. He was caring for a frightened woman. He gave her my room." Ruth's mouth tightened. "A generous wife would have understood." I set my hospital bag on the floor. "A generous wife paid your cardiologist when your insurance denied the claim." She blinked. I turned to Adrian. "A generous wife transferred $400,000 when your investor pulled out." His face went still. I looked at Vanessa. "A generous wife tolerated your midnight emergencies because her husband said you were fragile." Vanessa's eyes filled. "I never asked him to choose." "No," I said, "you only made sure there was always a choice." Adrian's voice hardened. "Enough, Vanessa. Go upstairs." She did not move. I smiled faintly. "Interesting. She follows instructions about my stairs better than my room." Ruth snapped. "Listen to yourself. You sound unstable." There it was again, the word Adrian had threatened to use, unstable, for years. I had been careful not to become the woman they accused me of being. Not too angry, not too loud, not too suspicious, not too demanding. I had lived inside their preferred version of me until I almost disappeared. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Adrian noticed. "What are you doing?" "Documenting." "You can't record people in their own home." "It's my home," I said, "and California is a two-party consent state, so I'm informing you, this conversation is being recorded. You may stop speaking." Silence, the kind of silence that arrives when bullies discover rules. I walked past them toward the study. Adrian followed. "You're not going through my office, I'm going through our safe." His hand closed around my wrist. Pain shot up my arm. I looked down at his fingers, then up at him. "Let go before I add physical restraint to the list." He released me immediately, but his eyes were furious. In the study, the safe was behind a framed abstract painting Adrian hated but kept because a magazine had once praised it. I entered the code, our anniversary. The door opened. Inside were passports, insurance documents, property records, the signed prenup, my mother's diamond earrings, and a sealed envelope labeled Bennett Trust disbursement schedule. I removed all of them. Adrian stood in the doorway. "You're being dramatic." I held up the prenup. "No, I'm being organized." Ruth appeared behind him. "A prenup? You made my son sign a prenup." I turned. "My father insisted." Adrian laughed bitterly. "Your father never trusted me." My father read contracts. I opened the top drawer of the desk, empty. The second drawer contained file folders. Most were business papers, but one caught my eye: household authorization renewal. My name was typed beneath Adrian's. A signature line waited at the bottom. I had never seen it. I took it out. "What is this?" Adrian's expression changed for half a second. "Too quick for Ruth, not too quick for me." "It's nothing," he said. "Then you won't mind if my lawyer reads it." He stepped forward. "Claire." I backed away, holding the folder. The old Claire might have asked why. The new Claire recognized the answer in his tone. My phone buzzed. A text from Nora: "Do not remain in the house if he blocks your exit. Take documents and leave." I slid the folder into my bag. Vanessa appeared again, now wearing her own clothes. She looked smaller without my robe. "Adrian," she said quietly, "maybe we should let Claire rest." Such a tiny word, such a complete confession. I looked around the study, the bookshelves I had arranged, the desk I had bought, the framed wedding photo where Adrian smiled like a man who had won something. For years, I had thought the opposite of love was hate, standing there, with stitches pulling under my coat and my husband's mistress hovering in my hallway. I understood that the opposite of love was evidence. Evidence meant the story did not need my feelings to be true. I picked up the framed wedding photo from the desk and turned it face down. Adrian watched the movement as if it hurt him more than the hospital. "Don't do this," he said. "You did this when you moved me out of my recovery room." "That was one night." "No," I said, "that was the night I finally saw the whole marriage." I walked to the entryway. "Ruth tried one last time. If you leave now, don't expect Adrian to come after you." I paused at the door. 6 years ago, that would have terrified me. 3 days ago, it might have hurt. Now it sounded like mercy. "Good," I said outside. I took one step into the sun and nearly doubled over from pain. Dad's driver hurried toward me, but I lifted a hand. "Just a second." I turned back and looked at the house, my house, not because I wanted to keep it, because for the first time, I understood how much of myself I had signed over inside it. My phone rang as I reached the car. Western Pacific Bank again. "Mrs. Whitmore," Dana said, sounding relieved to reach me. We froze the wire as requested, but there has been a second attempt. I gripped the folder. Amount: $2 million. My reflection stared back at me in the car window, pale, tired, unrecognizable. Then Dana added, "This one includes a scanned authorization form with your signature." I looked down at the unsigned document in my bag. "My signature is forged," I said, and just like that, the marriage stopped being only broken, it became evidence of a crime. Nora Fields did not look surprised when I told her about the forged authorization. She looked satisfied, not because the situation was good, but because lies on paper were easier to kill than lies in a marriage. Her office overlooked downtown Los Angeles, all steel, glass, and distance. I sat across from her in loose black pants, a sweater soft enough not to scrape my stitches, and the kind of exhaustion that made every chair feel like a verdict. Nora placed the scanned authorization on the desk. The signature was close enough to fool a careless bank employee, not close Enough to fool me. My C curved differently. My middle initial never connected to my last name. Whoever copied it had practiced from a formal document, not from my real handwriting. Adrian submitted this through household authorization. Nora said, "The account requires dual approval for transfers over $500,000. The bank flagged it because your device location showed you were hospitalized at the time of submission." I almost laughed. Shared location, the thing Adrian once insisted was about safety, had become proof. "Can we use it?" I asked. "We can use everything," Nora said, "but strategically." She laid out 3 folders: medical incident, marital assets, potential fraud. Seeing my life sorted into legal categories should have broken me. Instead, it made it breathable. Nora tapped the first folder, hospital first. "We request complete records, security footage preservation, visitor logs, and staff statements. We do not publicly accuse yet." She tapped the second. "Divorce petition. We file on grounds available under California law. No fault is enough, but misconduct matters for negotiation, protective orders, and credibility." Then the third. "This is leverage and potentially a separate civil or criminal matter. Do not threaten him with it, we gather." I nodded. My phone buzzed. "Adrian." I placed it face down. Nora raised an eyebrow. "Do you want a communication protocol?" "Yes, all contact through counsel except medical or immediate household logistics." "No. Private meetings. No calls." "Good, Claire," she said, studying me. "He will apologize when anger does not work." "I know." "He will cry when apology does not work." "I know." "He will offer to remove Vanessa." I looked at the window far below. Cars moved like silver beads through traffic. "He always offers to remove the symptom," I said, "never the disease." For the first time, Nora smiled, a small, dangerous smile. "Then you are ready." That evening, Vanessa posted the photo. I was at my father's house, lying on the guest bed under a pale blue quilt my mother had chosen years ago. My medication made me slow, and I had been drifting in and out of sleep when my friend Elena texted me, "Please tell me this is not the room." Attached was a screenshot. Vanessa Hale sat in room 6A, wearing Adrian's jacket, a hospital bracelet visible on her wrist. She held a paper cup and smiled softly at the camera. Caption: "Grateful for quiet spaces, kind hearts, and the people who show up when life gets scary." No names. She did not need names. The comments did the work. "You deserve care. V. So glad A was there. Some people show their true colors in crisis." My hand tightened around the phone. Adrian had always claimed Vanessa was private, fragile, too wounded by life to handle conflict. Yet she knew exactly how to place a knife where fingerprints would not show. I sent the screenshot to Nora, then I sent it to Helen Morris at Patient Rights with one sentence: "This appears to show unauthorized occupation of my assigned post-operative recovery room." I did not comment publicly. I did not defend myself. That was harder than shouting. But silence, when chosen, is not weakness. It is storage. By morning, Adrian's lawyer sent a letter, not a divorce response, not concern, a demand. Claire must refrain from making defamatory statements regarding Mr. Whitmore, MS, Hale, or any alleged hospital incident. I read it twice while drinking tea, then I forwarded it to Nora. Her reply came quickly: "Excellent. They are afraid of facts." At noon, Adrian violated the communication protocol before it even existed. He showed up at my father's front gate. The housekeeper called upstairs, "Mrs. Whitmore, your husband is outside. Mr. Bennett is in a meeting. Should I call security?" The word security hit differently now. I walked to the window. Adrian stood beyond the gate in a dark coat, hair windblown, face pale with the desperation of a man discovering locked doors. He called my phone. I let it ring. Then Nora texted: "His counsel has been notified. Do not engage unless you want a recorded boundary statement." I did want that, not for him, for me. I answered and put the call on speaker while my own phone recorded on Nora's app. "Claire," he said immediately. "Thank God. This call is being recorded for legal documentation." I said, "You may continue or hang up." Silence. Then, bitterly, "Of course. Your father taught you well." "No, you did." He inhaled sharply. "I came to see if you were all right. You could have asked. Before giving away my room, I made a bad call. You made a choice." Vanessa was panicking. "I was unconscious. She thought you hated her. I was recovering from surgery." "Claire, Stop repeating that like it explains everything. I looked at the garden below, at the lemon tree my mother planted before she died. It does explain everything. His voice changed, softer now, lower. I miss my wife. There it was, the apology mask. I am not available for emotional management, I said. Send. Household logistics through council, household logistics. We are married, not for long. The words left my mouth before I had planned them. On the other end, Adrian went silent, then he said, "You don't mean that." I did not answer, his voice sharpened. "You think divorce will make you look strong. People will ask why. They'll ask what happened. They'll hear about the miscarriage, about your anxiety, about how your father controls everything." The threat landed in the room and showed its face. There was no going back after that. "Adrian," I said, "if you mention my miscarriage publicly, my attorney will respond with your travel records, your messages to Vanessa during that week, and my medical records showing I was alone. You wouldn't. The old Claire would not have. The old Claire had protected his reputation like it was part of her vows. I saved your messages," I said, "all of them." He breathed once, hard, then he looked up at the window and saw me standing there even from behind the glass. I could see the exact moment fear replaced anger. I ended the call 2 hours later. Nora filed the divorce petition that night. I sat at my mother's old vanity and opened the folder labeled marital assets for the first time. I read every page: the house, the transfers, the business guarantees, the family payments, the healthcare bills, the emergency loans, the credit line secured against property Adrian had no right to pledge. By midnight, I had a list. By morning, I had bank statements. By noon, I had found the email. It was from Adrian to his CFO. Sent 4 weeks before my surgery. Subject: Bennett authorization. Timing: the body was short. Claire will sign after the procedure. She will be emotional and easier to convince. Need the liquidity before quarter close. I stared at the line until the words stopped being words and became a door closing forever. He had not given Vanessa my room because he forgot I mattered. He had done it because he thought breaking me would make me easier to use. Ruth Whitmore invited me to dinner like a queen summoning a servant who had misplaced the silver. Her message came through Adrian's counsel, which made it almost funny. Mrs. Ruth Whitmore requests a family conversation at the Laurel Canyon residence regarding reconciliation and recent misunderstandings. Nora read it and said, "No." I said, "Yes." She looked at me over her glasses. "I need them all in one room," I said. "For what purpose?" "To stop paying for the room." Nora leaned back. "You will not threaten. You will not argue. You will not disclose anything that harms the case. I know. You will record only if all parties consent. I know. And you will leave if Adrian blocks your exit." I smiled faintly. "Nora, I was slow for 6 years. I am not slow now." The dinner was set for Sunday evening. I wore a navy wrap dress because it did not press against my incision and because Ruth hated navy. She thought black was elegant and navy was stubborn. She was right about one of them. When I arrived, the dining table was set for 8. Adrian, Ruth, Adrian's younger brother Miles and his wife, Ruth's sister, a family friend who had once called me the quiet one, and Vanessa, of course. Vanessa sat beside Adrian in a pale pink sweater, looking fragile under chandelier light. My place was at the far end of the table, not beside my husband, not even across from him. At the end I almost laughed. Adrian saw my expression and stood quickly. "Claire, I didn't know Vanessa would be here." Vanessa lowered her eyes. Ruth said, "I invited her. She was part of what happened. She deserves closure too." Closure, another word people use when they want forgiveness without confession. I sat down at the far end. The family friend, Linda, gave me a sympathetic smile that somehow blamed me. "You look better, dear. Hospitals can make people emotional." I unfolded my napkin. "So can betrayal." The table went quiet. Ruth's knife touched her plate with a sharp click. "This is exactly the attitude we hoped to avoid." "Then you should have avoided inviting my husband's mistress." Vanessa flinched. Adrian said, "Claire." I looked at him. "Would you prefer the woman you gave my medical room to while I was unconscious?" Miles coughed into his water. Ruth's face reddened. "That is a vicious exaggeration." I opened my purse and removed a single sheet of paper, not the full evidence. Just one page, the hospital assignment record. I placed it on the table beside my plate. Room 6A. Patient, Claire Whitmore. Post-operative private recovery ordered by surgeon, no. One spoke. Vanessa stared at the salad plate. Ruth recovered first. A room assignment is not a marriage. No, I said, but it explained mine. Adrian leaned forward. He looked tired, handsome still, in the polished way that had fooled me and so many others. I asked everyone here because this has gone too far, he said. We need to speak as a family. Which family? I asked. His mouth tightened. Ruth answered for him. The family you married into. I nodded. Good, then let's discuss what I married into. I removed another paper, a spreadsheet this time, not all transfers, just categories. Ruth Whitmore medical expenses, $186 for 20, Whitmore Development Emergency Capital, $1,950,000, Laurel Canyon Mortgage Support, $640,000, Miles Whitmore Business Loan Repayment, $75,000, Family Credit Card Payments, $112,300. Linda leaned forward before she could stop herself. Miles whispered, Jesus. Ruth's face drained of color. This is private. Yes. I said, so was my surgery. Adrian's voice was low. Put that away. No, Claire. I turned to him. For years, your family treated my silence as proof I had nothing to say. That ends tonight. Vanessa stood abruptly. I should go. Sit down. Ruth snapped. Vanessa sat. Interesting. Ruth's authority worked on everyone until money entered the room. I looked at Miles. Your loan was described to me as temporary. Did you ever intend to repay it? He flushed. Adrian said it was family money. It was my separate property. His wife stared at him. I looked at Ruth. Your cardiology bills were paid from my account. You told people Adrian handled them. Ruth's chin lifted. A husband's household is a wife's concern. My surgeon ordered a recovery room, I said. Apparently that was not. Adrian pushed back his chair. Enough. I pulled one final envelope from my purse. Everyone watched it. It was not dramatic, not thick, not sealed with legal wax, just an envelope from Nora's office. Effective tomorrow, I said. All voluntary payments to Whitmore family accounts end. Household credit cards connected to my separate account have been closed. Any further requests for funds go through counsel. Ruth looked at Adrian. There it was, not concern, not shame, panic. What have you done? She asked him. Adrian did not answer. Vanessa's lips parted slightly as if she had just realized the room she stole came attached to a wallet she needed. I stood carefully, one hand bracing the table because pain still pulled when I moved too quickly. Adrian stood too. Claire, don't walk out. I looked at him. For 6 years, I had heard that sentence as a plea. Now I heard the command inside it. You walked me out first, I said. You just used a hospital hallway. Ruth's voice cracked. You would punish an entire family over one night. I picked up my purse. No. I am ending a pattern because of one night. Adrian followed me to the foyer behind us. His family erupted into whispers. He reached for my elbow but stopped before touching me. Good, he was learning the shape of consequences. You're humiliating me, he said. I turned. No, Adrian. Humiliation is waking up from surgery and seeing your husband's mistress in your bed. What you feel now is exposure. His eyes darkened. She is not my mistress. Then what is she? He looked toward the dining room. Vanessa stood in the doorway, pale and listening. Adrian said nothing. That silence answered better than confession. I opened the front door. He spoke behind me, quiet and ugly. No judge will side with a woman who destroys her own family out of jealousy. I looked back. Then it's a good thing I kept the chart. His face changed. I stepped outside before he could reply. The night air was cold. I breathed it in slowly, carefully, like a patient learning to stand again. Behind me, the house glowed warm and golden. Inside, people who had lived on my generosity were calling me cruel. I walked to the car anyway. Halfway down the path, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You think records make you safe? Ask your husband what happens if the board hears about your father's interference. I stared at it. Then another text arrived. This is bigger than a room. Claire, for the first time that week. I smiled. Yes, I whispered to the dark. It is. The hospital review meeting took place in conference room C, one floor below the executive offices. I had been in that room before, years earlier, presenting a patient navigation program funded by the Bennett Health Trust. Back then, I wore a cream suit and spoke about dignity in care. Adrian had teased me afterward for sounding like my Father, now I sat at the same table as the patient whose dignity had been treated as optional. The people present were Helen Morris from Patient Rights, Dr. Larkin, Hospital Counsel, a nursing supervisor, Nora, my father as a board representative, and me. Adrian had requested attendance. Denied. Vanessa had requested attendance, also denied. This was not about their feelings, it was about my chart. Helen began with a calm summary. The purpose of this meeting is to review whether post-operative recovery orders for Claire Bennett Whitmore were followed on the night of March 14th, and whether unauthorized non-clinical pressure altered care arrangements. Bennett Whitmore, hearing both names together felt strange. One name I had been born into. When I was preparing to leave, the nursing supervisor looked uncomfortable. The assignment system shows room 6A was reserved for Mrs. Whitmore at 2110. Dr. Larkin nodded. That matches my order. At 2221, Ms. Vanessa Hale was placed in room 6A. Helen looked at the supervisor, on whose order. There was no physician order assigning Ms. Hale to that room. The room became very quiet. Nora made a note. Helen continued. Who moved Mrs. Whitmore? She was not moved from 6A, the supervisor said. She had not yet been transferred there from post-anesthesia. The room was diverted before transfer. Diverted, another soft word. I wrote it down anyway. Dr. Larkin's jaw flexed. That diversion contradicted care instructions. Hospital Counsel cleared his throat. We have statements from staff indicating Mr. Whitmore insisted Ms. Hale needed privacy due to emotional distress. Nora asked. Was Ms. Hale admitted? No, the supervisor said. She was evaluated in the emergency department for lightheadedness and anxiety symptoms. Vitals stable. Discharge recommended. Was she post-operative? No. Was she under fall risk precautions? No. Was she connected to monitoring equipment? No. I felt every answer settle into place. No, no, no. The truth had rhythm. Helen turned to a screen at the front of the room. We also preserved security footage. My hands went cold. Nora glanced at me. Do you want a break? No. The video had no sound at first. A hallway camera showed Adrian speaking with a young nurse near the station. Vanessa sat in a wheelchair behind him, one hand over her face. Ruth stood beside her, arms crossed. Adrian gestured toward room 6A. The nurse shook her head. Adrian leaned closer. The nurse looked toward the camera, then toward another staff member. She appeared overwhelmed. Then Helen played the version with audio, captured from the nursing station microphone. Adrian's voice filled the conference room. My wife can wait. She's sedated. Vanessa is awake and panicking. I did not move on the screen. The nurse said, Sir, room 6A is assigned to your wife under surgeon's order. Adrian replied, I'm her husband. I'll explain it to her. Then Ruth added, Claire won't mind. She knows how to behave. Something in my chest tightened, not because the words surprised me, because my body remembered being unconscious while they were said. Nora's pen stopped moving. Dr. Larkin looked furious. My father folded his hands together on the table. He did not look at me. Maybe he knew pity would undo me faster than anger. The footage continued. Vanessa lifted her face from her hands. She did not look panicked now. She looked watchful. Adrian crouched beside her. The microphone caught his next words. Just take the room. I'll deal with Claire. I'll deal with Claire like I was a parking ticket, a problem to manage. Helen stopped the recording for several seconds. No one spoke. Then Nora said, We request copies under all applicable patient rights and litigation preservation procedures. Hospital Counsel nodded stiffly. We will provide what is permitted. Dr. Larkin turned to Helen. I want my objection noted. This should never have happened. It will be, Helen said. The nursing supervisor's eyes were damp. Mrs. Whitmore, I apologize. Staff should have escalated sooner. I looked at her a week earlier. I might have comforted her. I might have said it was fine. Women are trained to soothe people who admit they failed us. But it was not fine, so I said, thank you for saying that. Please make sure it does not happen to another patient. Her eyes filled further. We will, after the meeting. My father walked with me to the elevators. He had said almost nothing during the review. When the doors opened, he finally spoke. I heard Ruth say you know how to behave. I watched the elevator numbers glow. She has said worse. I know. I looked at him. Pain crossed his face before he controlled it. Your mother heard it once, at the rehearsal dinner. She wanted to leave. I went still. What? She said Ruth spoke to you like a woman training a dog. Your mother wanted to stop the wedding. The elevator doors closed without us stepping in. I could barely hear over the blood in my ears. Why didn't she tell me? She tried. You said Adrian's family was different from ours. Warmer, less judgmental. I remembered I had been so eager to prove I had chosen love over legacy that I mistook insult for informality. Dad's voice softened. Your mother asked me not to push. She said you would come home when you were ready. My throat tightened. Mom had died 2 years after my wedding. Cancer, fast and merciless. Adrian had been kind during the funeral week, attentive enough that I convinced myself all the doubts were grief. I wondered how many women stay because men behave decently at the exact moment leaving becomes possible. I wish she were here, I said. Dad looked toward the windows at the end of the hall. So do I. My phone buzzed. Vanessa. I almost ignored it. Nora had told me not to engage privately. But the message preview appeared on the screen. Claire, please, Adrian is blaming me for everything. I need to talk before this ruins all of us. I sent it to Nora. Her reply came within a minute. Do not meet alone. If you choose to hear her, public place, recorded with consent, I attend remotely or receive transcript. She may be trying to shift liability. I typed back, I want to hear what she says. Nora responded, then make her say it clearly. That evening, Vanessa agreed to meet at a cafe near my father's house. She arrived without makeup. That was how I knew she was performing more carefully than usual. She sat across from me, hands wrapped around a mug she did not drink from. You look better, she said. I am not here for comfort. She flinched. I deserve that. No, I said, you deserve accuracy. This conversation is being recorded. Do you consent? Her eyes flickered. Yes. I placed my phone between us. She looked smaller than she had in my robe, but I remembered the video, the watchful eyes, the way she waited for Adrian to push start. I said. Vanessa swallowed. Adrian told me you two were basically separated. I laughed once. Her cheeks reddened. Emotionally. He said you stayed married because of money and appearances. Convenient. He said you didn't love him anymore. So you took my recovery room. Tears gathered fast. Too fast. I panicked. The footage says otherwise. The tears stopped. There she was, not fragile. Calculating. Claire, she said softly, you have no idea what he promised me. No. But I imagine it involved things he did not own. Her face hardened for a moment. The cafe noise seemed to fade. Then Vanessa leaned closer. He said you would break, she whispered. He said after the surgery, after everything you lost, you would sign whatever he put in front of you because you were terrified of being alone. My hand stayed still beside the phone. Say that again, I said. She blinked. I met her eyes. Clearly, Vanessa stared at the phone on the table. For the first time since I had known her, she seemed to understand that softness could be cross-examined. I shouldn't have said that, she whispered. But you did, Claire. I'm trying to help. No, you're trying to move from his side of the fire to mine before it burns you. Her mouth tightened. There was the real Vanessa again, not the trembling charity darling, not the pale woman in the hospital bed, a woman who had made calculations and now disliked the math. I leaned back carefully. My incision pulled when I sat too straight. I did not let my face show it. Tell me what Adrian promised you. She looked toward the cafe window, where evening traffic slid past in red and white lines. He said he was leaving you. When? Last year. I nodded. Before or after he asked me to guarantee the bridge financing? She did not answer. Before or after my miscarriage? Her eyes dropped. There, another answer. He said you were cold, Vanessa said, that you treated marriage like an arrangement, that your father controlled you. I almost smiled. Adrian had borrowed my money, my house, my patience, and my grief. Then he told another woman I was cold because there was nothing left warm to steal. And you believed him? I asked. I wanted to. That was the first honest thing she had said. Why the hospital room? Vanessa wrapped both hands around the mug again. He said you needed to understand that the marriage was changing. What does that mean? He wanted you to stop resisting the authorization. My pulse slowed again. The way it had when the bank called. What authorization? She closed her eyes. Something for his company. I don't know the details. You knew enough to mention it. He said if you felt him slipping away, you would sign to keep him. For a second, I saw the whole structure, not one cruel night, a pressure campaign, Vanessa's calls, Ruth's criticism, Adrian's distance, the sudden tenderness before asking for signatures, the threats about instability, the hospital room. He had not neglected me, he had managed me. I reached for my tea and took a small sip. It had gone cold. Did you know I had surgery that night? Vanessa's voice dropped. Yes. Did you know I was unconscious when he gave you the room? Yes. Did you know it was assigned to me under medical order? He said hospital rules were flexible. Did you care? Her eyes filled again. But this time the tears looked less useful. I cared about winning, she said. The honesty landed between us like a broken glass. I believed that too. My phone recorded the silence. Vanessa wiped under her eyes. He made me look like a monster. No, I said. He gave you an opportunity. You took it. She flinched. Please don't use this against me. You don't get to choose the use of truth after benefiting from the lie. She leaned forward. If you destroy him, he'll destroy me too. That was when I understood why she had come. Not remorse, fear. Adrian had turned on her. Of course he had. Men like Adrian did not protect women. They rented loyalty with attention and called it love. When the rent came due, they changed the locks. You should get your own lawyer, I said. Her face crumpled. That's it. That is more advice than you gave me when you were in my room. I ended the recording and stood. Claire, she said. I paused. He did love you once. For a moment, the words found a soft place and pressed. Then I thought of Adrian on the hospital footage. My wife can wait. No, I said. He loved being chosen by me. That is not the same thing. I sent the recording to Nora from the car. Her response came 20 minutes later. Useful, not enough alone, but useful. We filed tomorrow. The divorce papers were served to Adrian at his office the next afternoon. I knew because he called within 7 minutes. I did not answer. Then he texted, divorce. Are you insane? Screenshot. You recorded Vanessa. That's illegal if she did not consent. Screenshot. She did. You are trying to ruin me. Screenshot. Then finally, Claire, please. We need to talk like husband and wife. That one hurt the most. Not because I believed it, because part of me still remembered wanting that sentence. I wanted a husband who came to me before the damage, not after counsel, not after footage, not after frozen accounts and public embarrassment. He had waited until the world began to see him clearly. Then he wanted privacy. Nora filed for temporary financial restraints that afternoon. Adrian could not draw against accounts connected to my separate assets. He could not sell or encumber jointly held property. He could not contact me except through counsel. By evening, Ruth called from a blocked number. I answered because I wanted one last clear sample of her. Do you know what you've done? She said. This call is being recorded. Continue if you consent. She inhaled sharply. You Bennetts, always hiding behind lawyers. You Whitmores, always needing them explained. You are punishing my son because he comforted a sick friend. Your son forged my signature. Silence. Then, too quickly. That's absurd. Ask him. He would never. Then the bank will clear it up. Her voice changed. The outrage slipped, and fear showed through. Claire, listen to me. Men make mistakes. A smart wife does not burn down her own house over pride. I looked around my father's guest room, my mother's quilt, my medication bottles, the folder of records beside my bed. I did not burn it down, I said. I found out who had been living off the fire. You were nothing before Adrian. That made me smile. Ruth had always believed volume could revise history. No, I said. I was quieter before Adrian. I hung up. The next morning, Vanessa deleted her hospital post. Too late. Screenshots existed. Comments existed. Metadata existed. Nora loved metadata. By the end of the week, the hospital placed Adrian's donor privileges under review. Whitmore Development's CFO emailed me directly, politely asking whether delays in family-backed liquidity were temporary. I forwarded it to Nora. Then I opened old emails. Once you begin looking for disrespect, you find it folded into ordinary language. Adrian to CFO. Claire prefers not to be involved, but she'll approve if needed. Adrian to Ruth. Don't worry, she never says no when it's framed as family. Adrian to Vanessa. After the procedure, I'll handle her. She hates conflict. I read that one 3 times. She hates conflict. He had mistaken my peacekeeping for fear. Maybe sometimes it was fear. Fear of losing him. Fear of being alone. Fear of proving my father right. Fear of admitting my marriage had become a place where I disappeared politely, but fear is not a permanent address. That afternoon, a courier delivered a cream envelope to my father's house. Inside was an invitation: Street, Aurelia Annual Children's Wing Gala. Adrian and I were listed as co-chairs. My photo was beside his in the printed program. Below us, in smaller letters, Vanessa Hale was listed as special guest speaker. I called Nora. They still expect me to attend, I said. Do you want to? I looked at the invitation. Adrian smiling beside me like nothing had happened. Vanessa smiling below us like she had not slept in my recovery room. Yes, I said. Nora was silent for a moment, then she asked, as a wife or as a Bennett? I picked up a pen and crossed out Whitmore on the envelope. As myself, the St. Aurelia Gala was held in a ballroom full of white roses, gold chairs, and people who believed suffering looked better when turned into fundraising language. I arrived alone. That mattered. Adrian had tried to coordinate transportation through his assistant. He sent a message through counsel saying a united appearance would prevent unnecessary speculation. Nora replied with one sentence: Mrs. Bennett Whitmore will make her own arrangements. Bennett Whitmore. For now I wore a black column dress with long sleeves and a high neckline. It covered the fading bruises from 4 lines. It also made Ruth look disappointed, which I considered a minor success. The ballroom quieted in waves when I entered. People always know more than they admit. Some had seen Vanessa's deleted post. Some had heard Adrian was removed from a hospital floor. Some had noticed the sudden absence of Whitmore Development's name from donor correspondence. Adrian came toward me immediately. He looked perfect. That was his gift. Crisis made him sharper. Dark tuxedo, clean shave, concerned eyes. The public version of my husband had arrived polished and wounded. Claire, he said softly, you look beautiful. Do not touch me. His hand stopped halfway to my elbow. Several people noticed. His smile tightened. We are co-chairs tonight. I know. We need to keep this dignified. I looked around the ballroom. You should have started in the hospital. His eyes flashed. Then Vanessa appeared. She wore pale silver, delicate enough to suggest innocence and expensive enough to prove sponsorship. A small diamond pendant rested at her throat. I recognized it not as mine, as one purchased from an account Adrian had once told me was for business hospitality. She smiled with trembling bravery. The performance was excellent. Claire, she said, I hope you're healing. I am. Her eyes flicked toward Adrian. Without him, she seemed less certain where to stand. Ruth swept in next, wearing emerald silk and fury. Tonight is not about your tantrum, she whispered. No, I said, tonight is about patient care. Her mouth snapped shut. A bell chimed for dinner. The program began with speeches from hospital executives. A video played showing children in bright therapy rooms, nurses holding tiny hands, families smiling through fear. I watched and felt my anger change shape. This hospital had saved me. This hospital had failed me. Both were true. That was why truth mattered. Adrian took the stage after the first course. He was a gifted speaker, charming, warm, the kind of man who could say community and make investors reach for checkbooks. Street, Aurelia has always been personal to our family. He began. Our family. My fingers tightened around the edge of the table. He looked toward me from the stage, eyes shining with practiced emotion. My wife, Claire, has taught me so much about compassion in difficult moments. A camera turned toward me on the screen. My face appeared above the stage, calm, pale, unsmiling. Adrian continued, marriage, like medicine, asks us to show up for one another even when it is hard. The room softened. People wanted reconciliation. It made them comfortable. It let them believe harm was just a misunderstanding waiting for the right lighting. Then Adrian extended a hand toward me. Claire, would you join me? There it was, the public trap. If I refused, I looked bitter. If I joined him, I became part of his lie. I stood. The room applauded. Adrian smiled with relief. Poor man, he still thought I was walking toward him. I climbed the steps slowly. The incision pulled under the dress, and for a moment, the room tilted. I steadied myself on the podium. Adrian leaned toward me, murmuring through his smile, thank you. I looked at the audience, then at the hospital board table, where my father sat expressionless beside Helen Morris and Dr. Larkin, then at Vanessa, seated near the stage with her hands folded like a saint in a painting. I adjusted the microphone. My husband is right about one thing, I said. Medicine asks people to show up in difficult moments. The room quieted, Adrian's smile froze. I learned that most clearly last week, when I woke from emergency surgery and discovered that the private recovery room ordered by my surgeon had been given to another woman. A sound moved through the ballroom, not a gasp, something better, recognition. Adrian whispered. Claire, I continued, I will not discuss private litigation tonight. I will not ask this room to choose sides in my marriage, but I will speak as a patient, a former program advisor, and a donor. Ruth stood halfway from her chair. My father did not move. Patient dignity is not a luxury, I said. Post-operative care is not a favor. A woman recovering from surgery should not need a powerful last name to have her chart respected. The silence was total now. Effective tonight, I am withdrawing from all joint Whitmore charitable commitments connected to this hospital. Future contributions from my separate foundation will be made under my own name and directed specifically toward patient advocacy, consent education, and post-operative rights. I turned slightly toward Helen, St. Aurelia has opened an internal review. I trust that review will be completed honestly. Helen inclined her head. I looked back at the audience, to the nurses who tried to help me. Thank you. To the patients who have ever been told to be quiet because someone else was more important. I believe you. Then I stepped away from the microphone. For 1 second, nobody moved. Then Dr. Larkin stood and applauded. Mara, seated at a staff table near the back, stood next. Then another nurse, then another. The applause did not roar, it grew. That made it worse for Adrian. He stood beside me, trapped in the light, unable to grab my arm, unable to silence me, unable to turn my pain back into a private inconvenience. Vanessa's face had gone white. Ruth looked like she might shatter a champagne flute. I walked off the stage alone at the bottom. A woman I did not know touched my sleeve lightly. My daughter had surgery here last year. She whispered, thank you. I nodded, because if I tried to speak, I might cry, not from weakness, from the strange grief of being believed. Nora met me near the hallway. She had attended as my guest, though Adrian had not known. That was controlled, she said. Was it legally terrible? No. She handed me a glass of water. It was legally careful and emotionally devastating. My favorite combination. I took the water. With both hands across the ballroom, Adrian had left the stage. Men in suits surrounded him, not with admiration now, but questions. His company's CFO was among them. Vanessa tried to approach him, but he turned away from her. She saw me watching for a moment, her face twisted with pure hatred. Then Adrian's CFO crossed the room toward me. Nora stepped closer. Mrs. Whitmore, he said, sweating slightly. I apologize for the timing, but there may be some confusion regarding guarantees tied to Whitmore Development's upcoming financing. There is no confusion, Nora said. He looked at me. I held his gaze. My separate assets are no longer available to support Adrian's obligations. The man swallowed. Behind him, Adrian stared at us. I saw the exact moment he understood. The room he had taken from me was nothing compared to the foundation I was taking back. Adrian arrived at mediation with red eyes and a better suit than judgment. His lawyer, Martin Kell, looked like a man who charged by the hour and hated surprises. Ruth came too, though no one had invited her. She sat in the waiting area wearing pearls and martyrdom. Nora and I sat on one side of the conference table. Adrian sat on the other. It should have felt dramatic. Instead, it felt administrative. That was the quietest death of love. Not screaming, not betrayal. A conference room with bottled water and labeled folders. The mediator, a retired judge named Patricia Shaw, began with the usual reminders. Confidential process. Good faith. Asset disclosure. Temporary agreements. Adrian stared at me the entire time. I looked at the folders. Nora had arranged them in order. Medical incident, financial records, forgery inquiry, communications, prenuptial agreement. Vanessa Hale. The last label was Nora's idea. I appreciated her precision. Judge Shaw looked between us. Mr. Whitmore, your counsel has indicated you wish to discuss reconciliation before property division. Adrian leaned forward. I love my wife, he said. I felt nothing that frightened me more than anger would have. He continued. I made mistakes. I allowed a stressful night to become something it wasn't. But Claire and I have been together for 8 years. married for 6. You don't throw that away over one incident. Nora opened her mouth. I touched her sleeve. I'll answer. Judge Shaw nodded. I looked at Adrian. Name the incident. He blinked. What? You said one incident. Name it. The hospital misunderstanding. No. His jaw tightened. The room. Whose room? Silence. Nora leaned back slightly. Adrian looked away first. My wife's recovery room, he said. And who did you give it to? His face flushed. Claire. Who? Vanessa. Judge Shaw watched carefully. I folded my hands. That is the first time you have said it plainly in front of me. Adrian's eyes shone now. Whether from shame or strategy, I no longer cared. I panicked, he said. Vanessa was spiraling. My mother was pressuring me. You were asleep. I thought I could fix it before you knew. No, I said. You thought I would know and accept it. His mouth opened. I slid a printed transcript across the table. My wife can wait. She's sedated. He looked at it and went still. Nora said. The footage is preserved. Martin Kell closed his eyes briefly. Judge Shaw made a note. Adrian pushed the paper back as if it burned him. I said something stupid. You said something true. He turned to the mediator. This is what I mean. She won't let me apologize. I almost smiled. Men like Adrian thought apology was a key. Insert it. Turn it. Regain access. Judge Shaw asked. Mrs. Whitmore, are you open to reconciliation? No. The word was simple, clean. Adrian flinched as if I had shouted. Ruth burst into the room 10 minutes later. She had apparently decided waiting rooms were for people without sons to rescue. This is obscene, she announced. This family is being dismantled because Claire wants revenge. Judge Shaw's expression cooled. Mrs. Whitmore Sr., you are not a party to this mediation. I am his mother, and legally irrelevant unless called. Nora coughed once into her hand. Ruth ignored her. Claire, look at him. He has not slept. He has barely eaten. Is this what you wanted? I looked at Adrian. He did look terrible. For years his exhaustion had been enough to make me set myself aside. Not anymore. What I wanted, I said, was to wake up from surgery in the room my doctor ordered. Ruth's lips trembled with rage. You keep returning to that. Yes, because all of you keep trying to step over it. Judge Shaw asked Ruth to leave. She refused. Security was called. The second time Adrian watched security remove someone because of me, he did not look angry. He looked afraid. After Ruth left, mediation moved to finances. This was where Adrian's apologies thinned. Nora presented the transfer summaries. Martin objected to characterization. Nora provided bank records. Martin asked for time to verify. Nora provided email confirmations from Adrian's own accounts. Judge Shaw's eyebrows rose gradually. Mr. Whitmore, she said, did you represent these transfers to your family as marital funds? Adrian's face hardened. We were married. It was our life. Were they from Mrs. Whitmore's separate trust distributions? He said nothing. Martin answered. Some appear to be separate property contributions, subject to further review. Nora slid the prenup forward. Not some, she said. The prenup was clear. Separate property remained separate. Voluntary transfers did not convert ownership. Business guarantees required written renewal every year. No spouse could forge, imply, or pressure authorization. My father had insisted. I had resented him. I silently apologized to him in that room. Then came the forged signature. Martin requested a private caucus immediately. Judge Shaw granted it. Adrian stood so quickly his chair scraped the floor. Claire, can we have 5 minutes alone? No, please, no. His voice cracked. I made a mistake because I was desperate. There are mistakes, I said. Then there are signatures. He leaned both hands on the table. If my company collapses, dozens of people lose jobs. You should not have built their payroll on my silence. He stared at me for a moment. I saw hatred, not because I had harmed him, because I had stopped allowing harm to pass through me quietly. When mediation resumed, Martin was paler. We propose a pause, he said, to allow Mr. Whitmore to seek independent financial restructuring. Nora looked at Judge Shaw. We propose temporary restraints remain in place, and Mr. Whitmore vacate the Laurel Canyon property pending ownership determination. Adrian snapped. That's my home. I looked at him. It was my recovery room too. The words landed hard. Judge Shaw granted temporary exclusive use to me. though I had no intention of living there. More importantly, she ordered preservation of all financial records and prohibited Adrian from contacting banks regarding my separate assets. When we left, Adrian followed me into the courthouse hallway. Nora stepped between us. He ignored her. "Claire," he said, low and broken, "I'll never see Vanessa again." I stopped. There it was, the symptom. I turned to face him. "You still think she is the reason?" His eyes were wet. "Isn't she?" "No, she was the room you chose. The marriage was the hallway you left me in." He looked like he wanted to reach for me. Nora's stare stopped him. "I can change," he said. I believed he meant it in that second. People often mean change when consequences arrive, but remorse born at the edge of loss is not the same as love. "You can change," I said, "but not with me waiting outside the door." I walked away. Behind me, Adrian said my name once. I did not turn. Vanessa wore white to court, not bridal white, witness white, soft, modest, designed to imply surrender before anyone asked a question. Nora saw her and whispered, "Bold choice." I almost smiled. The hearing was limited. Technically, temporary orders, financial restraints, admissibility questions, and whether Adrian's conduct around the hospital incident supported certain protective terms. But Vanessa had been subpoenaed because her statements touched both the hospital matter and the authorization pressure. She sat in the witness chair with her hands folded. Adrian did not look at her. That alone told me their alliance had cracked. Nora's questions began gently. "Ms. Hale, did you go to St. Aurelia Medical Center on March 14? "Yes." "Why?" I felt faint. "Were you admitted as an inpatient?" "No." "Were you assigned room 6A by a physician?" "No." "Did you know room 6A had been assigned to Mrs. Whitmore?" Vanessa hesitated. Her lawyer shifted behind her. "Yes," she said. The courtroom seemed to tighten around that word. "Did you know Mrs. Whitmore had undergone surgery that evening?" "Yes." "Did you know she was unconscious or sedated at the time you entered the room?" Vanessa's eyes flicked toward Adrian. He stared at the table. "Yes." Nora let the silence sit. Then she asked, "Why did you remain in that room?" Vanessa swallowed. "Adrian told me it was fine." "Did you ask whether his wife needed it?" "No." "Why not?" "Because he said she would understand." Nora walked slowly back to her table, picked up a document, then returned. "Ms. Hale, did Mr. Whitmore ever discuss with you his wife's financial authorizations?" Adrian's lawyer objected. The judge allowed a narrower question. Nora nodded. "Did Mr. Whitmore tell you he needed Mrs. Whitmore to sign financial documents after her procedure?" Vanessa's lips parted. This was the moment. Everyone knew it. "Yes," she said. Adrian closed his eyes. "Did he say why after the procedure?" Vanessa's voice became smaller. "He said she would be emotional." Nora's face did not change. "Did he say emotional in what way?" "He said she had been fragile since the miscarriage." The word hit the room. My hands curled in my lap. Not because I was ashamed, because grief should not have to appear in public records to become real. Nora's voice softened, but only slightly. "Did he say that fragility would make her more likely to sign?" Vanessa whispered. "Yes." Adrian's lawyer objected again. The judge noted the answer for limited purpose. Nora continued, "Ms. Hale, did you have a romantic or sexual relationship with Mr. Whitmore during his marriage?" Vanessa began to cry. This time, nobody moved to comfort her. "Yes," she said. Ruth, seated behind Adrian, made a strangled sound. Interesting. Ruth had defended Vanessa as a sick friend until the word became too plain to decorate. "When did that relationship begin?" Nora asked. Vanessa looked at Adrian again. He gave her nothing. "Last year," she said. My breath left slowly. "Last year, before the miscarriage, before the hospital, before the forged authorization, before every night Adrian came home late and kissed my forehead like he was granting mercy." Nora asked, "Did Mrs. Whitmore know?" "No." "Did Mr. Whitmore tell you he intended to divorce her?" "Yes." "Did he file for divorce before Mrs. Whitmore did?" "No." "Did he continue accepting financial support connected to Mrs. Whitmore's separate assets?" Vanessa's lawyer objected. Sustained. Nora had already made the point. When Vanessa stepped down, she looked at me. For once, there was no performance left, only fear. Adrian took the stand later for limited questioning about the authorization. He denied forging my signature. He said an assistant must have submitted the wrong document. He said he believed we had discussed the transfer. he said. Stress had confused everyone. Then Nora presented the email. Claire will sign after the procedure. She will be emotional and easier to convince. The courtroom went silent. Adrian read it on the screen. The color drained from his face. His lawyer requested a recess. The judge granted temporary financial restraints, ordered forensic review of the signature, and prohibited Adrian from accessing or attempting to access any account tied to my separate property. He also ordered communication through counsel only. When the hearing ended, reporters stood outside. Not many. Enough. The gala had made the case interesting. Vanessa's name made it clickable. Adrian's company made it financially relevant. Nora guided me toward the side exit. Adrian intercepted us near the hallway. He looked wrecked, not polished now, not controlled. His tie was crooked, his eyes were red. Claire, he said. Nora stopped. Counsel only. He ignored her. I didn't plan it like that. I looked at him. He seemed almost sincere. That was the cruelest part. Adrian could believe his own softer version as soon as the hard version failed. You wrote it, I said. I was under pressure. So was I. I did not forge your name. His face twisted. I loved you. No, I said. You loved what I made easier. He stepped closer. A court officer glanced over. Adrian noticed and stopped. I can't lose everything, he said. I thought of room 6A, my bag in the corner, Vanessa under my husband's jacket, my body behind a curtain. You should have remembered that when you decided I could wait, for a moment. His mouth trembled. Then Ruth appeared behind him, pale and furious. You heartless girl, she whispered. I turned to her. Mrs. Whitmore, I said, your son took my recovery room, my money, my signature, and my grief. If I still have a heart after that, it belongs to me. Nora touched my elbow. We walked past them. Outside, the Los Angeles sun was too bright. Cameras lifted. Questions flew. Claire, did your husband forge your signature? Are you suing Vanessa Hale? Is the Bennett Trust withdrawing from St. Aurelia? I did not answer. Not there, not like that. But at the car door, I paused. A reporter called. Mrs. Whitmore, do you have any comment? I turned. My name, I said clearly, is Claire Bennett. Then I got into the car. The Laurel Canyon house looked different after Adrian moved out. Bigger, emptier, less haunted by the sound of him arriving late and expecting forgiveness to be waiting with dinner. I did not move back in. I went there with movers, Nora's assistant, and a locksmith. The locksmith changed every exterior lock while I stood in the kitchen where Adrian had once promised we would grow old. Promises are easy in rooms someone else pays for. I walked through the house with a clipboard. My mother's paintings, mine, the dining table, mine, the leather sofa Adrian loved, joint purchase. Let him fight for it if he wanted. The memory of losing dinner in the primary bedroom. I found a box under his side of the closet. Inside were old photographs of him and Vanessa. College parties, beach weekends, a vineyard trip before he met me. At the bottom was a newer photo, Vanessa asleep on our living room sofa, Adrian's hand resting on her hair. The timestamp was from the week after my miscarriage. I sat on the edge of the bed and held the photo until it blurred. Not because I wanted him back, because betrayal continues after you leave. It sends postcards from days you thought you had survived. Nora's assistant knocked gently. Claire, I'm fine. It was not true, but it was becoming true in pieces. I placed the photo in an evidence envelope. By then, Adrian's company was unraveling. Whitmore Development released a statement about temporary liquidity challenges. 2 board members resigned. The CFO cooperated with the forensic review faster than anyone expected. He had apparently kept his own copies of emails because Adrian blamed subordinates when things went wrong. Smart man. The hospital also completed its internal review. St. Aurelia acknowledged a failure to follow post-operative room assignment protocol, disciplined 2 administrators, revised escalation procedures, and permanently revoked Adrian's donor access privileges pending further board review. They did not publicly name me. They did not need to. I received the formal letter on a Thursday. Dear Ms. Bennett, we sincerely apologize for the failure in care coordination that occurred during your post-operative recovery. I read the entire thing once, then I placed it in the folder not because apology fixed it, because documentation mattered. That evening, Adrian came to my new apartment. I had chosen a small place in Pasadena with arched windows and no memories. The lease was in my name only. The furniture was new, simple, and comfortable. Nothing in the rooms had been selected to impress Adrian. The doorman called, "Ms. Bennett, there is an Adrian Whitmore here. He says he is your husband." I looked at the half-unpacked boxes around me. "He is not allowed up." "Yes, 2 minutes later. My phone buzzed, a photo appeared, Adrian standing outside the building, holding my wedding ring. I had left it with Nora as part of personal property exchange. Apparently, he had requested it, then a message. I kept it safe. I stared at the ring in his palm, 6 years in a circle. Then he called. I did not answer. Another message, "Please come down, no lawyers, no Vanessa, just us." I almost deleted it. Instead, I called building security and asked them to document that he had appeared after being instructed to communicate through counsel. Then I did something I had not done before. I went downstairs, not outside, to the lobby. Glass separated us. Adrian stood beyond the locked entrance, hair damp from light rain, face thinner than I remembered. He looked up when he saw me. For a moment, he smiled. Hope is ugly when it has ignored consent. He lifted the ring. I pressed the intercom button. "This is being recorded by building security," I said. His smile faded. "Claire, please, you need to leave. I just want to give this back. Send it to my attorney." His face crumpled. "You don't mean that." "I do. This is our ring." "No, it is evidence of a contract you broke." He looked down at it. "I was scared," he said. "The company was failing. My mother was pressuring me. Vanessa made me feel like I could breathe. I watched him through the glass a month ago. That confession might have destroyed me. Now it sounded incomplete. And I made you feel what?" I asked. He swallowed. "Responsible. There, finally." "Not loved, responsible." I nodded once. "Thank you for telling the truth." He stepped closer to the glass. "I can fix that. I'm in therapy. I ended things with Vanessa. I'll sign whatever you want. I'll tell everyone I lied. You are telling me what you will do to avoid consequences." "No," he said, desperate now. "I'm telling you I choose you." I thought of all the times I had waited to be chosen, at dinners, in hospital rooms, in quiet bedrooms where his phone lit up with Vanessa's name, in bank offices, in grief. "You choose me now because the other doors closed," I said. "I am not your emergency exit." He shut his eyes. Rain darkened the shoulders of his coat. "Claire," he whispered, "where am I supposed to go?" It was the question beneath every apology. If I stopped absorbing him, where would all his need land? "Not on me, not anymore. That is not my job." I released the intercom button. He stayed for 18 minutes. Security noted everyone. Then he left. The next morning, Nora filed the building incident with the court. Adrian's lawyer complained we were being unnecessarily hostile. Nora replied that women are often called hostile when they enforce written boundaries men assumed were decorative. I printed that email and considered framing it. A week before the final hearing, Vanessa called from a new number. I did not answer. She left a voicemail. "Claire, I know you hate me. I deserve that. But Adrian is saying I manipulated him. Sponsors are pulling out. The hospital removed me from the speaker list. I need you to clarify that he pursued me too." I listened once, then I forwarded it to Nora. I did not call back. Vanessa wanted fairness only after the unfairness stopped favoring her. The final documents arrived in a thick envelope: proposed judgment, asset division, debt responsibility, civil reservation of rights, restoration of former name, Claire Bennett. I ran my fingers over the printed name, no Whitmore, not because a name alone could free me, but because some doors should not remain on the map. That night, I dreamed of the hospital, the curtain, the hallway, Vanessa in my room. But this time, when I reached for my phone, no one tried to stop me. When I woke, morning light filled the apartment for the first time in months. I did not check whether Adrian had texted. I got up, made coffee, and prepared to end my marriage. The final divorce hearing lasted less than 40 minutes. That felt almost insulting at first. 6 years of marriage, months of evidence, a hospital room, a forged signature, a mistress in my robe, a mother-in-law escorted from mediation, a company collapsing under the weight of money it never owned. 40 minutes. But Nora had warned me. "Courts do not perform emotional closure," she said outside the courtroom. "They process legal endings. The rest is yours." So I sat at the table and let the law do what it could. Adrian sat across the aisle. He looked older, not ruined in the dramatic way people imagine. No wrinkled suit, no wild eyes, No public begging, just smaller consequences had taken the shine off him. Ruth was not there, Vanessa was not there, his lawyer had likely advised against any audience that might become a scene. The judge reviewed the agreement, the Laurel Canyon property would be sold, with my separate contribution returned first according to the prenup and secured documents. Adrian would assume debts tied to Whitmore Development unless proven otherwise in separate proceedings. He would repay specified unauthorized transfers. The forged authorization remained under investigation. With civil claims preserved, neither party would make public statements about private medical details beyond agreed language. I would resume my former legal name, Claire Elise Bennett. When the judge asked whether I understood and agreed, I said yes. Adrian's voice was rough when he said the same. Then it was done. No thunder, no music, no final speech from the universe, just a gavel, a signature, and the end of being legally tied to a man who had thought I could wait. Outside the courtroom, Adrian approached me one last time. Nora moved to block him. I touched her arm. It's all right. He stopped a few feet away. For once, he respected distance. I'm sorry, he said. The words sounded different now, not useful, not strategic, just tired. I believed he was sorry. I also knew sorry had arrived after damage, not before choice. I hope you become someone who does not need to lose everything to recognize harm, I said. His eyes filled. Do you hate me? I thought about it. The hospital, the house, the emails. Vanessa, Ruth, the ring outside my apartment. Hate would have kept me facing him. No, I said, I am done organizing my feelings around you. That hurt him more. I saw it. Then I walked away. My father waited outside by the car. He did not hug me immediately. He knew better than to assume the shape of my needs. Instead, he asked, do you want company or quiet? I looked at the courthouse steps, the people moving in and out with folders, coffee, fear, and relief. Company for lunch, I said. Quiet. After, he nodded. Your mother would approve. For once, the mention of her did not break me open. It steadied me. 3 months later, I returned to Street Aurelia, not as Mrs. Whitmore, not as Adrian's wife, not as the woman behind the gala scandal, as Claire Bennett, founder of the Bennett Patient Advocacy Initiative. The new office was on the 2nd floor, near surgical recovery but not inside it. That had been my request. Close enough to matter, far enough to see patterns. A brass plaque had been installed beside the door. Bennett Patient Advocacy Initiative, Consent, Dignity, Care. Below it, smaller, founded by Claire Bennett. I stood in front of the door for a long time. Mara came down the hall carrying a stack of charts. When she saw me, she smiled. Looks good, she said. It does. Are you nervous? Yes, good, she said. Means you care. Inside, the office was simple. 2 desks, a consultation room, soft chairs, a shelf with patient rights brochures in 4 languages, a framed copy of the revised post-operative transfer policy hung on one wall. I had insisted on that too. Not my apology letter. The policy, pain should become protection, not decoration. Dr. Larkin stopped by with coffee and a gruff don't make us look too bad. I intend to make you better, I said. He smiled. Worse. My father arrived last, carrying a small box. What is that? I asked. Something your mother kept. Inside was a fountain pen, blue lacquer, gold clip. I recognized it immediately. My mother had used it to sign every birthday card, every school form, every note she left on the kitchen counter. She wanted you to have it when you signed something that belonged only to you. Dad said. For a moment, I could not speak. Then I took the pen. My hand did not tremble. The first case came in that afternoon. A woman recovering from a complicated delivery. Her husband wanted to override her visitor restrictions because his mother was upset. The nurse called our office before it became a hallway argument. I walked into the room and introduced myself. The woman looked exhausted, frightened, and apologetic for needing anything. I knew that face. I sat beside her bed. What do you want? I asked. Her eyes filled. No one had asked her that yet. Outside the room, her husband argued with security, not violently, not dramatically, just entitled enough to believe doors were suggestions. The officer looked through the glass at me. I looked at the patient. She whispered, I don't want them in here. So I stood, stepped into the hallway, and said, then they do not come in. The husband sputtered. His mother cried. The nurse held firm. Security walked them back to the waiting area. The patient closed her eyes in relief. And I felt the circle break, not repeat, break that evening. I went home to my Pasadena apartment. There were still boxes in the guest room. A plant on the windowsill was trying to survive my inconsistent watering. The couch was too deep and perfect for reading. No one else had a key. On my dresser sat a small clear evidence bag. Inside was the hospital bracelet from the night everything changed, Claire Whitmore. I had kept it not because I wanted the pain, because I wanted proof, not for court anymore, for myself, proof that I had been hurt, proof that I had not imagined it, proof that even half-conscious, even abandoned, even humiliated under fluorescent lights, I had reached for the phone and chosen myself. My own name was on the office door now, my own name was on my lease, my own name was on the court order, my own name was on the bank accounts Adrian could no longer touch. I made tea, opened the window, and let the evening air move through the apartment. My phone buzzed once, a news alert. Whitmore Development announces leadership restructuring amid financial review. I read the headline without opening the article, then I cleared the notification. A second later, another alert appeared. Vanessa Hale steps back from charity partnerships following St. Aurelia review. I cleared that too. There had been a time when their downfall would have felt like the point. It was not. The point was the quiet after. The point was no footsteps at my door, no apologies requiring management, no mother-in-law calling cruelty by the name of family, no husband deciding my pain could wait. I took the hospital bracelet from the dresser and placed it in the bottom drawer beneath my scarves. Not hidden, stored. There is a difference. Then I turned off the light and walked into the living room. The city glowed beyond the windows. For the first time in years, I did not feel like a woman waiting to be chosen. I felt like a woman who had opened the right door and walked through it alone.